Good evening, good evening, good evening, and welcome to the Positional Sports Talk Show Post, live streaming on Facebook Live and from our Positional Sports Talk Show YouTube channel. We are a sports talk show made for the fans, from the perspective of fans, presented by lifelong sports fans. We will provide our opinions and positions on the hottest topics in sports. Good evening again. My name is Big Reg, and I'm joined this evening by my partners in crime. How you doing this evening, J3?
What's up? I'm doing well, man. What's going on?
It's all good. Glad you got your energy tonight.
Yes, sir.
We got Big Ed in the building. How you feeling this evening, Big Ed?
I feel great. Glad to see you guys. Glad to be here tonight.
Absolutely,
All
absolutely. We got my man Johnny in the building. How you feeling this evening, Johnny?
Johnny?
You with us, Johnny?
Hello.
Yes, I am. Oh my technology is definitely not looking out for me today. Happy to be here as always. Excited to talk about some sports. Just excited for the show in general, man. Let's go.
That's
Yes,
all
sir.
right, all right. And last but definitely not least, the professor's in the building. What's going on, Professor J? How you feeling this evening,
What's
brother?
going on, fellas? Always glad to be back on the show, and we about to kick it. Praise the Lord.
Amen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this evening, we will discuss the local team, the Washington football team, and the corporate pressure being put on them to change their name. I didn't think it was going to happen anytime soon, but we'll get into it. Looks like it may happen in 2020. A huge decision came down last week with McCord Maker's decision to commit to Howard University being the first ESPN 100 and the first in a long, more than 2 decades time of a five-star basketball prospect choosing the HBCU over some prominent schools. And when we get into it, you'll hear some of the schools. Some of them are one and done factories.
Hate you.
We're also going to talk about how sports leagues are dealing with the opening amid this COVID-19 pandemic. Some of them are running into some issues, and we'll delve into that a bit. But we got to start off the show with the man of the hour, Mr. Patrick Mahomes, QB of Kansas City Chiefs,
Wow.
signed a 10-year extension yesterday, $450 million in the 10-year extension, with options that can earn him an additional $25 million, but that's a little far-fetched, maybe another $5 or $10 million. Plus, he still has 2 years, $27.6 million left on his current deal. So in total, the Kansas City Chiefs have just locked up Patrick Mahomes, 12 years, $477 million plus up to possibly $500+ million.
More money, more money, more money.
You got that
Plenty
right.
of it.
Woo!
Right.
That's all I can say.
Mm.
Man, I heard that number. The two things that jumped out: the 10-year extension, because they aren't doing those type of extensions anymore. I think the last person that got that was Michael Vick when he got a 10-year deal with Atlanta. Um, but then $450 million. What were your first thoughts when you heard the number?
Much deserved. Much deserved. So I was talking to somebody earlier today, and they actually wanted to debate whether he was worth the money or not. And I'm sitting here looking like, did you not see what he's done? Not last year, but the year before, when they should have won the AFC Championship, that would have put him in the Super Bowl. I mean, he puts up points. Period. He is definitely one of the best quarterbacks that's on the field. You cannot deny that.
Oh, I agree. The man has started 37 regular season games, and I think he's won 32 of them.
Wow.
He's never lost a game by more than 7 points. In
Right,
his 2
'cause he
years
puts up
starting, it's been the AFC Championship and Super Bowl MVP. Man. Uh-oh, you got that look on your face, Ed. You got that look. What you thinking, brother?
Yeah, I'm getting paid.
Oh, man.
Come on, bring it, Ed.
So I have a couple things that I initially thought when I heard this contract. Immediately I searched and tried to figure out how much actual money that he was actually involved with, number one. Number two, again, the reported length of the contract extension was already out there. So I knew it was 10 years, but essentially a 12-year contract because he still has 2 years remaining on his rookie deal. And I was wondering how he benefited from signing such a long-term deal. Certainly, you said that a long-term contract like this in the NFL hasn't been signed since probably Michael Vick. He comes to mind. Dante Culpepper. I know he had a long-term deal at once upon a time as well. But I just don't understand why he would relinquish the leverage that he has, considering he is probably not only the most marketable individual in the NFL, but certainly probably the most valuable player in the NFL, even though he didn't win the MVP this year because of injury, obviously, and Lamar Jackson's great season also. But so I dug a little deeper into this contract, and actually he gets $63 million upon signing. And then at the same time, he gets $140 million, which is protected against a catastrophic injury, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't understand what the purpose of it was because if you look at the contract, it's out there now to be looked at. There's no provisions like most big time NBA players when they sign these lucrative long-term deals. They all have opt-outs. Mahomes does not have an opt-out contract. He doesn't have a guaranteed contract. So the 500 and some odd million sounds good on paper, but it's not the richest contract in the history of American sports. Mike Trout still holds that distinction because Mike Trout's contract is 430 some million, completely guaranteed. The only thing that could prevent his contract from being guaranteed is his retirement. Also, Mahomes' contract does not contain any provisions which reflect the salary cap. What I mean by that is, as the salary cap continues to go up, his contract remains the same. He doesn't have any opt-out, like I just said. He doesn't have any opt-out provisions, and so he's locked in. So the contract is really team-friendly. Now, he did mention he was searching for a team-friendly deal because he wants to believe that with the extra money, they could still build a team around him. But I'm leery of any business trying to do the right thing by the player. Again, I congratulate the Kansas City Chiefs. They were smart enough to draft him. I definitely take my hat off to Andy Reid because he's historically shown the ability and the willingness to employ and play black QBs when it wasn't always popular. You can go back to the Michael Vick signing following his prison. You could go back to when he drafted McNabb instead of the most popular pick, which would have been Ricky Williams at the time. So I take my hat off to Andy Reid. And I take my hat off to Mahomes too, because he deserves a contract of that status. I just wish it would have been a little shorter in term so that he could have more flexibility, because every year the market is going to be reset. And like we get upset when, we hear, oh, well, Dak, he wants a certain amount of money, but he's not Mahomes and he's not Deshaun. I've even said that, but it's not necessarily your talent. It's the market that dictates what you're going to get paid and what you're worth. That's it.
Well, maybe he's looking at it as far as staying with a franchise for long term. I mean, because in my opinion, if I'm a player, I want to be on a team that's building the dynasty. I don't want to be on a one and done and then trying to find the next deal or the next team where I'm trying to make money and still win games. So I'm thinking in his mind,
Right.
he's trying to look at a dynasty situation. Which right now, if you look at the Chiefs on the offense and defense, there are no
Yeah.
holes.
Built
So
nicely.
they're built for the next couple of years to win and win big.
You
Yeah.
said that great word. Just real quick, I'll let you go, Professor J. I watched ESPN before we came on, and Patrick was on the 6 o'clock ESPN live, and he stated that he wanted to stay with the franchise that he trusted in him. Everybody was on the same page, flowing the same way, had the same mindset, and that he wanted security, some long-term security, which he gets with this deal. But he also wanted to leave Kansas City the ability to continue to keep players that are currently on the team and build for the future. But there are protections in this contract for him, and we'll get into that after Professor J and Johnny get in here.
Yeah, I mean, I almost fell out of my chair when I heard the reports of the contract initially. Then when I started hearing the actual numbers, and then it could balloon up to $503 million over the life of the contract. I mean, I told you guys earlier, I thought this was a move because to J3's point, I think he's a player with a personality that once he has gotten comfortable somewhere, and he already won an MVP and now a championship, and now he's locking in. What, man, many players would tell you Andy Reid is one of the greatest coaches to play for. If he's not showing any semblance that he wants to retire anytime soon and that they got a chance to build a dynasty there, I would lock in for that kind of money too, which makes him the richest quarterback contract right now. And to Ed's point, yeah, the market is already always being set. But if a player likes the market that he lives in, he likes where his family's being raised, he likes the team and the direction that it's going. I mean, this could turn into something like the Patriots out west if they play their cards right. So I like what they did here because it shows a semblance of being stability, of course. And also, like Sent said, he stole my thunder. This could be a warrior situation. You know, y'all know I said earlier that Mahomes is like the Steph Curry of the NFL, and we can get into what that means a little bit later. But because he has that image, you know, that crispy, clean image, you know, people like him, they gravitate towards him, and he's a leader. I think that is something that the organization saw that they in turn wanted to lock up for a long term as well.
Well, I
Come on,
see
Johnny.
Jamari stop talking. I currently have another technological issue. But I was impressed by the contract. I think Ed brought up some great points that I didn't look at. I didn't realize that the contract was that team friendly. So it makes me look at what was his mindset. He is a young man that early in his career, he has already snatched up a Super Bowl. So maybe he's trying to build a dynasty. He's going to get plenty of money and endorsements. His future is wide open. As far as looking at things long-term for him, with this type of contract, I mean, he's sitting at the top of the totem pole. And I don't believe any of this type of contract is going to be rolled out to many other quarterbacks at this moment. So I think I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach on whether or not the contract was actually bad. But I think he deserves the contract. And I think it is quite lucrative, and it'll work out for the team as a whole. I think it was an excellent decision between Kansas City and him to make this long-term agreement. It's hard to find QBs out here, and to lock someone of this talent up for this long, and he wants to do it, this may be the perfect recipe.
Right, and I caught myself from falling, but like Ed said, what does it mean for Dak Prescott?
Well, we're gonna get into Dak, but let's dig into the details like Ed was doing about this contract. Like he said, over the first 3 years of this contract are guaranteed. Now, 2 of them were already guaranteed anyway off of his rookie deal, the 27.6. So in the first 3 years, he's only going to make $63 million. He's not breaking the bank. He got a $10 million signing bonus and his 2020 base salary is 850,000, So he left room for Chris Jones, who they currently have on a franchise tag, for them to sign him long term and give him a big signing bonus, so they can keep one of their most disruptive defensive players on the team for long term. What's ingenious about the contract is, like I said, the first 3 years are guaranteed. Year 2023 gets guaranteed in 2021. So he's already going to be on the team in 2021. So you're basically guaranteeing 2023. He's already going to be on the team in 2022. Year 2024 gets guaranteed in 2022, the third day of the league year. So up until 2025, they would have to make a decision 2 years in advance to we're going to break away guarantee his money. And in his contract, if you don't guarantee his options, then you automatically have to release him once his guaranteed contract portion has been played out. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he's got a full no trade clause. So you can't trade him. You can't release him. So up until 2025, Patrick's going to get all that money.
But I like I said, I still don't think. I mean, yeah, the money is definitely something that he's concerned about. But I think he just wants to be in that dynasty setting, and I think that's the reason why he decided he wanted to go ahead and agree to this deal, because of the fact that, yeah, man, they got the pieces. Again, you want to be on a winning team, and the money, yeah, he knows he's gonna make the money because of his talent. But to be on a squad that's offense and defensive minded, that are winning, why would you go somewhere else?
I feel you.
Like I was saying, as far as why I would prefer he signed, say, like a 3-year contract extension, which would still take you to the 2025 mark, which you were alluding to, Big Reg, is that he potentially is giving up or voiding or relinquishing, I should say, 2 contracts, 2 major extensions within his playing career. Because if he's 25 years old now, 5 years from now, which would have been a 3-year extension, like you said, 2025, and then in 2024, more than likely, a year before that one expires, he signs another extension. Because you got to understand, Andy Reid, 62, the way they're handling black coaches right now, there's no guarantee Eric Bieniemy is going to still be on staff by that time, so he might be gone. And again, Andy Reid has had health problems in the past. The GM is a young guy. His name is Veach. I think his name is Veach or Vim. I think it's Veach. Mm-hmm. He is a young guy in place in Kansas City. So, and the Hunts are
they're the richest family in football.
Yeah, they're one of the most stable families in professional sports, definitely football. So, like I said, I'm not knocking it. The Kansas City has a beautiful fan base. Everything is set up for him to succeed. It's just that I think he's leaving a lot of money, even though $500 million is an impressive amount. I think he's leaving a lot on the table when you consider who's coming up for contracts within the next few years. You have Dak, whether we like it or not. Dak is going to get paid. You have Russell Wilson.
Get paid that money.
Russell Wilson will be coming up again. Lamar Jackson will probably having this conversation about Lamar next year. If you're looking down the pike, you have Deshaun and you have Kyler Murray. So you have quarterbacks in the pipeline who will, within this 12 years, will probably reset the market to where we look at 500 million is like, oh, okay, that's 500 million.
I don't know. You acting like he's signing a Scottie Pippen contract over here, man. I mean, how much is the market going to move with the quarterbacks that you just named? You talking about they going to jump to like 50, 60 million in the next 5 years?
We don't know what the salary cap looks like.
The owners are not going to let that happen. Nah.
Well, first of all, Ed, keep in mind, this is something that he agreed to. Obviously, money is not an issue for him, because if it was, he wouldn't even have signed the contract.
$500 million?
Right.
Well, money's not the issue, because unlike other positions in football, quarterbacks tend to play out their contracts. And actually, what normally happens is when they start getting near the end of the contracts, because they want to help the cap, help the team, they come and renegotiate and add years to the contract, aka your boy in Pittsburgh, who got 2 more years added to his contract to help out the cap. And the key term is in 2025. At the end of the 2025 season, Kansas City is going to have to make a determination of where the cap is, and more than likely in 2025, he's probably going to renegotiate this deal and either extend it some more or do some things, because the third day of the league year 2026 guarantees his 2027 salary and roster bonus, which is $60 million. So there's room to maneuver in the contract where he can still 5 years down the road look at this and say, hey, contracts got out of whack and I want to get another taste of this. Or Kansas City may say, hey, we need some help, trying to sign this player. Can you move this money to this and all that? So he's going to probably see 400 of this $450 million extension for real, if not all of it. And I mean, how much money do you need when you're talking about hundreds of millions? Yeah, he could be leaving another 50, 60, or maybe 100 million left. But when you got 400 million, which means you're going to bank 200 million
or more,
right?
Plus, that's not even talking about advertising and all them dollars he can get. Do you want to take all the money? Do you want all the money, Ed?
Yep.
How much can you spend?
Because hey, I told you guys last week, I'm a baseball guy now. I want it all.
Hey,
them guys don't leave nothing on the table.
Hey, Sense said, "Don't be greedy." Sense said, "Don't be greedy." Ed.
No, look. I'm a Mahomes fan, definitely an Andy Reid fan. Like I said, I applaud this deal, man. I applaud, and he didn't have to go through no hoops to get it.
Nope.
I mean, it seemed like it was a pretty easy negotiation.
Yep.
So
you didn't even hear about it.
Didn't hear about it.
The last thing we heard about it, they was like, we're not in a rush. We don't need to take care of Patrick right away. Then all of a sudden, they sent the lady to the store to get some Dom Perignon. And she's like, they sent me to get 6 bottles of Dom. Somebody signed it today, and she posted on her Instagram. But she's like, I don't think it's Jones, so it must be. And boom, there it was. So let's talk about the future quarterbacks. You got 2 quarterbacks that are looking for new contracts right now. Dak is looking for a long term, and Dak wants to play your. It ain't even that funny, man. Y'all gonna leave Dak alone.
Dak ain't winning no games.
Dak is winning games. The defense ain't showing up. I ain't even, don't get me on here trying to defend the Dallas Cowboys. Come on, that ain't even right. Stop it. Dak had his best year, and y'all talking about Dak ain't win no games.
Did they go to the playoff?
That wasn't Dak's fault. He only played one side of the ball. Stop it.
Hey.
Dak is guaranteed the 31.6 or 7 on the franchise tag. Next year he's guaranteed 37. So now Jerry's got to come up between $35 and $45 million in order to get Dak to sign a long-term deal.
I don't agree. I don't think most of these teams are going to chase down that Patrick Mahomes contract because he kind of, I'm not going to say he necessarily stands alone, but clearly the way Kansas City treated him, the way they committed to him for so long, they put the money up. It wasn't a tussle back and forth. They just paid that man and secured their future. They're showing you this dude is different. He came into the league on fire. The minute he could get behind quarterback, he just placed himself behind center, excuse me. He just placed himself high above the others, even with Deshaun Watson in the mix and my man Lamar in Baltimore. I love the both of them, but neither one of them have that sizzle, that eye catching on top of all the other skills. Quite like my man Mahomes. I got a lot of love for Dak. That's the way I feel because none of these guys are going to get offered that contract. I promise you.
Oh yeah.
I don't think he reset the market. I think his contract sets outside the market.
That's what I said between 35 and 45. I ain't say Dak was going to reset this market. A person who might though next year,
Lamar
might reset the market. If Lamar wins in the playoffs next year, they're gonna be looking at Lamar like, you want 452, or is it gonna take 500?
The difference in Lamar, the question is, can you set him behind everybody's center? With Patrick Mahomes, you feel like you could punch him into everybody's offense. One of the biggest things Baltimore has done, and I'm glad they did it, was make sure they tailor fit their offense to Lamar. Patrick Mahomes is ready to go. He's ready to rock and roll. With Lamar, you gotta, if you're not used to that type of offense, you're not ready for him. So right now he has the perfect situation. I may give a nod more to Deshaun Watson as far as age, throwing ability, seeing the field. I think he has some potential to get a big deal, but this particular deal hasn't been done in a while, and I don't think anybody else is going to get one like it very soon.
John, I think you're disrespecting Lamar. If you look at all the statistics, Lamar's passing statistics are higher by his age than anybody else in NFL history. Don't forget, he led the league in passing touchdowns last year. He threw for over 3,600 yards last year. But people only remember the crazy runs. The man threw for 10,000 yards in college. Don't disrespect Lamar, and I think you're going to see Lamar take another step this year.
I would love to see it. I think Lamar benefits a lot from the fact that there's a fear of him running. RG3 kind of had that same respect when he first started before he got hurt. Colin Kaepernick, that early on in his career when he was running a whole lot. He was also able to throw the ball a lot because the guys have to, you force the middle linebackers and the outside linebackers just to play just a little bit more close. Everybody's kind of concerned when that's in the back of your mind, when you can get up and down the field like Lamar, it kind of changes the way they play defense. And I think we have to give kudos to Baltimore for riding this wave and tweaking and making sure they keep refining this particular offense for him, which is unique. The thing about these other quarterbacks we mentioned, their skill set is unique in a different way. It's more traditionally unique. It's more team friendly. So as long as LeVar has the backing of Baltimore, the sky could be the limit. But the minute there's some type of issue, I don't know if that'll stand the test of time. Just my opinion.
Well, right now he's set up to win because the AFC. Who else is there to compete against now that Brady's out of New England? I'm sorry, Ed. I know your boys are in there, but they ain't no threat right now.
Kansas City.
Baltimore.
That's disrespectful, but we're not talking about that right now. No, it's not true. It's definitely not true. But let's get back to the subject at hand. Johnny, I agree with you. You everything you said is correct. But I will caution you when you say that Mahomes is a plug and play player. We don't know that. But what we do know is that Kansas City, like Baltimore, are stable franchises that cater both of their offenses and teams around their star quarterbacks.
Which was smart.
It has nothing. Now, we don't know if Lamar can go to another team and do what he just done. And we don't really know if Mahomes can do it. We want to believe he can do it, but we don't know. Like you go back to Dak didn't have the benefit of stability on any level of his organization when he got there. And I'm not defending that. You know, I think that could be a little better. But all I'm saying is that he didn't go to Andy Reid in Kansas City. He didn't get to go to Harbaugh in Baltimore. He went to Jerry Jones and what's that clown? What's that clown? Jason Garrett.
Be careful. Be careful. Be careful.
Now,
you know we got a lot of Dallas fans on the line.
I'm
sorry for you.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. But again, right now, who alluded to it? Oh, J3. I will say Baltimore and Kansas City currently have the edge as far as the AFC is concerned, because the unknown is if Ben has anything left.
Who?
Right.
Yes. Who?
Right.
See, you don't know what a stable franchise looks like because you're a Redskins fan. So you don't understand. You don't understand what.
Actually, we do. Historically, we do. Historically, we do. So get that part right, Ed. Historically, we do. So watch your mouth when you talk about my team. Watch your mouth, Ed.
Y'all didn't watch your mouth when you was talking about Pittsburgh 3 minutes ago.
All right, so let's stick to the topic, Ed.
Okay, we're gonna stick to the topic.
So to your point, stability. We're talking about stability, right? Why are we even having conversations about these quarterbacks being on different teams? Pat Mahomes is saying, I want to be a Chief for life. Didn't Ben say, I want to be a Steeler for life? Lamar should say, I want to be a Raven for life. So if the New England Patriots have shown in the last 20 years what a stable franchise can do, to me, that's a blueprint for how quarterback and coach need to be married to each other to try to produce as many Super Bowls as they can. So I like that thinking there. So if Harbaugh and Lamar got that connection, let's ride it out for his entire career. That's what I want to see, definitely with black quarterbacks, because it's been done already for the other quarterbacks. So if we can establish something long-term in the NFL with our quarterbacks, then I really think that we're setting precedents today that we can all 10 years down the road say that we were seeing change in the league.
I hear you. You know what was funny? Ed brought up the baseball contracts. It was funny. They said, leave it up to Pat to sign a baseball contract in the NFL.
Yeah, he did.
and remember, everybody told Kyler Murray that he was making the wrong decision to play football over baseball because he had already signed that $12 million deal before he played his last year of college football. Had gotten like $6 million up front, but part of his contract was, I want to play one more year of college football, end up being the number 1 pick. Now, he's already made $30 million in his rookie contract. He's going to get the 5th-year extension. That's going to be another $25 to $30 million. And then Kyler's going to be looking at $35, $40+ million. That's baseball money. Football was never in those leagues. And we're talking about in 2 years. So let's move on. Somebody, since y'all brought up the local team and all the trials and tribulations, we got to talk about the trials and tribulations that Dan Snyder's doing. I'm sure he's not getting much sleep at all these days. In the past week, Dan Snyder's woken up to a letter from investors worth $620 billion that wrote to Nike, Pepsi, and FedEx saying, your boy need to change the name or we pulling all our funding from your companies.
Long overdue.
That's right. It sure is. I mean,
so go ahead.
Go ahead, Ray.
The next day, FedEx issues their statement saying, we agree it's time for them to change the name. And that was huge because most people don't know that one of the minority owners of the Redskins is the CEO and president of FedEx.
That's right.
10% of the team.
That's right. FedEx Fred. That's right.
Then he gets Nike. They don't say anything. They just pull all the Redskins merchandise off of the site.
Oh, yeah.
No need to say anything. We just eliminate it.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Target follows. Walmart follows, and then his 3 minority owners, including FedEx Fred, announced they all want out, which is 40% share of the team.
Mm.
So Dan having a rough week for a
Right.
man that's worth a few $1 billion. How y'all see it?
Well, of course, it's long overdue. I mean, this was something a lot of people don't know, but it was on the table over 20 years ago when Daniel Snyder bought the team. But he had vowed then that he was going to accept the entire culture of the Redskins because he had grew up a fan, of course, from this area, and that he wanted to do as much as he could to preserve the legacy of the Washington football team. So even then, see, people think that in 2012 and 2014, that was the first time he say, "I'll never sell the team," put it in cap. I mean, change the name, put it in caps, and all this stuff. But this was something that he vowed to do from the very beginning. So now that we have this climate of change, I mean, a lot of people want to say, "Hey, it's the Floyd thing," but I want to educate people a little bit here because it was actually those Native American nations, those groups that actually continue to fight behind the scenes over all of these years. Remember, they lost in court. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court. What happened here is that they started appealing to these shareholders and these investors that represent this 620 some odd $1 billion that also fed into what the 3 major companies did, which also led to other companies following suit, which also shed light on the fact that his 3 so-called friends and minority investors have been fed up with Daniel Snyder for a number of years. So this is why they hired a firm to actually go out and search because they couldn't sell their minority stakes on their own. So now people are really now just starting to understand how serious this issue is, and it goes much deeper. Because when you talk about the team coming back on federal land that's in Washington, D.C., that's already been said, not just by Eleanor Holmes Norton and Mayor Bowser, but it's been said by many people in Congress that they would not allow the team to come back into the city with that name. That's part of the curmudgeon that Jack Kent Cooke had found himself in, and that's why he moved the team to Landover, a.k.a. Raljean, Maryland. But here we are today in 2020, and you have this swell, this wave, this tsunami of support behind the changing of the team's name. And let's not stop there, y'all. We had the racist owner, George Preston Marshall, which everybody knows that when he founded the team, he was a known bigot and racist. He had vowed to not have any African-American players playing for his team. And then in 1962, when Bobby Mitchell got traded from the Cleveland Browns, that was a result of the NFL itself putting pressure on him, and President Kennedy at the time putting pressure on him to integrate the team. They were the last franchise to do it. So people got to understand that this was a swell that was coming for many, 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 many years. And now, because of this political climate of today, the change is finally coming to fruition, and it is about time.
Wow.
As J3 always says, what made the change was the money, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's always about the money, because a billionaire can put his stake in the ground and tell you you're not going to tell him how to run his business. But when you got concessions, when you got clothing and marketing materials, when you got the naming rights, the stadium deals, all that stuff hanging in the balance, oh yeah, he's not going to leave that money on the table, because he knows that if he puts his foot down again, he's going to lose a lot of money, which would then cause the NFL to have cause, to force him to sell the team. Because if the Redskins is the one franchise that's hurting the bottom line of the entire NFL, and it's that owner that's stopping the movement of that flow of money, they will force him to sell. That's why he had to give in. It's right there.
Great.
So give me a history lesson, Professor J, because I've been down in DC area for a minute now. However, I want to know, has there been a groundswell because of this area that we all call home is so full of, it's such a diverse group of people that live here. As a fan, has the fan base always supported the name Redskin, or was it, or did the fans get muted? Meaning that
Well, I'll tell you. And this goes back to the legacy that I was talking about earlier. When you're winning, nobody cares, and the Redskins have a rich franchise history of winning championships in the old league and then coming into the Super Bowl era and going to 5 and winning 3 Super Bowls. So when you're winning, nobody cares. Even the Native Americans were happy. I mean, look what they've done in the last 30 years. They even named their high schools and all of that across the country on their own land Redskins. But over the last several years, they've even changed the names on their own reservations. So what Daniel Snyder did was he polled the people that he knew would be in favor of the name, and he also gave a little bit of this as incentive for people, going on his side. This is why when the Washington Post and others wrote their articles and they polled some of the same people, everybody was like, well, if they don't care about it, why should we? But now it's a much bigger issue now. And the voices that he tried to push down are now swelling up. And now that the team has been losing for over 20 years, Ed, to your point, then people are paying attention more to the underlying issues of why this team can't win. Think about it. Daniel Snyder had to overpay in free agents to get them to come here. People didn't want to come here before. And now when that groundswell stop because he said he's not going to overpay people anymore, then he got back into the doldrums of not knowing what to do with the team. And then guess what? People start paying attention more to all the noise. When folks like Mike Wise, Mike Wilbon, and all of them, Tony Kornheiser, started writing about this nationally as well as locally, that's when it started picking up momentum. And then the national media like ESPN started getting involved, and that's when it really got out of hand. But before, no, because the team was winning. Nobody cared. I mean, for God's sake, you had a black man that dressed in the feathers that was at the game for the last 30 years. I think he recently passed away a few years ago. But come on. I mean, we were insensitive to what we were really doing.
Okay.
Very true.
And it was portrayed as being a heritage thing, not only for the football team, but to show the Indian nation in a strong, powerful situation.
Right.
That's how it was portrayed.
Right.
Okay.
So a lot of people didn't do the research, didn't know the behind the scenes of that Redskins was actually deemed a derogatory term by Native Americans, or indigenous people is actually how they prefer to be called. But because you see it on baseball teams, you saw it in college football teams and all that, it was like, it's no big deal. Right. You got all these Indian images all across sports. So they must be okay with it.
And to throw something else in, a lot of people don't know this caveat. This team used to be the Boston Braves. They used to be in Boston. And then in Boston, which is a notoriously racist city, the people used to walk around with red paint, red face, mocking the Native Americans during that time. So for him to name the team the Redskins just further shows you that the moniker came from a racist term and racist acts. But people don't do their history.
Yeah, back in the 70s, he got Native American to state that it was actually a term of endearment that they felt. So they've been paying people off for years, covering it up to use it to their advantage. But I think this is going to be an opportunity, believe it or not. And any of y'all who follow this show, y'all know I've been killing the Redskins since we've been on the air for the past 10 months. Dan Snyder has a perfect opportunity to totally rebrand this organization. He's gotten rid of the GM. He's gotten rid of the coaching staff.
Finally.
He's getting ready to get rid of the name. He's got a good young defense that should be fairly dominant. He's got a young black quarterback that's actually going to be given an opportunity to succeed. He's got a good young offense. So he can, if he does this correctly, he can actually make a bunch of money and get the Washington football team out of this 23-year doldrum of his ownership and actually make it hopefully a successful franchise by allowing Ron Rivera to run the show, coach focused, having a say. Some people don't like the fact that he's actually had Ron Rivera's helping him with the decision.
Yeah, I
with
don't
the
agree with
naming
that.
rights, but it's his show, and he's allowing him to run the show. So this is opportunity for Dan Snyder to go from the joke of the owners to possibly, if he does this right, become a franchise that people can look up to in the NFC. Just my thoughts.
That's right.
I never understood, because one thing Dan Snyder has had the reputation of being for since he's owned the franchise is a moneymaker. There's no doubt that the Redskins make plenty of money. They're one of the top franchises in North American sports when it comes to making money. And I never really understood why he was so adverse to changing the Redskins name when all I saw was an opportunity to make way more money than he already had made. But I'm glad this change is finally coming because, again, the Redskin is equivalent in some circles to the N-word. And we all know how that, all know how that feels as far as that has no place in society. Right. And so I just never understood, as a marketing man and genius, some call him, not a football man genius, but a marketing genius, why he wouldn't just go ahead and say, you know what, this is the right thing to do.
Because it was the people he was surrounded himself with, and the Prince of Darkness was one of them. Bruce Allen was one of them, and this is one of the reasons why. This is one of the reasons why they were trying to sneakily take the team to Northern Virginia, because Virginians were populating the game, and they were the ones buying season tickets in recent years. And we all know the history, the racist history, the bigoted history of folks in Virginia. So, of course, if they got that stadium deal 5 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because his tail would have gotten a new stadium deal down in Northern Virginia. But since that fell through, he got his tail between his legs now, and he knows that that site where RFK Stadium sits now is the best place for the team to be, to rejuvenate the fan base and to make him some money. So yeah, it's several factors that came together to make him force the change, but it's just about who you surround yourself with. And he surrounded himself with people, ironically, the 40% of them are fed up with his antics now.
So I think we beat that to death. It'll be interesting to see what the final name turns out to be. There's been a bunch of things out there, but I don't think any of them are actually going to happen. So we will see.
Right.
Staying in the Washington, D.C. area, huge commitment from McCall Maker. For y'all who don't know or may not have heard of Mr. Maker, he's approximately 6'9.5", 6'10". He plays more three, even though he's that tall. Shoot from anywhere on the floor. 3-point range galore, but is willing to go inside and bang with the big boys.
Yeah.
Is one of the top players in the country and made the decision partially because the delay of the NBA draft. And there's still a chance. He hasn't pulled his name out of the draft yet. But I think that the college season is going to start before the NBA season ends. So I think he'll end up going to Howard. But McCall Maker is going to come to Howard University. And he says not only did he feel good about the decision, he hopes that he is the spark to bring elite athletes back to HBCUs.
That's right. That's right.
Back to HBCUs. So I was excited about the announcement, because a few shows ago we talked about Mikey Williams, who was only a sophomore, and talking about that he might go to an HBCU. And actually McCall, in his announcement, shouted out Mikey, said, "Come on now, let's make this a thing." So, but it's big.
Hey, Mikey,
it's big.
Come to Morehouse, Mikey. Come on, man. Come to Morehouse. We need you.
So How do you guys think this will affect the Howard community if he opts out and actually shows up? And how do you think this may affect the HBCU communities?
It's going to affect them in a very big, powerful way. I know you're ready to get off, Professor J, and I'm gonna get out.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Now you good.
I ain't gonna stay there long. But this is big. My maker, I keep messing up his first name, but this is going to bring a lot of attention. What I'm excited about, usually teams, some of these other teams would sign up games with HBCUs to just basically run them over in the first 4 or 5 games, kind of get into the flow of the season. We want to break a sweat before we go to see some people in our conference. This gives them a platform. I forget the other name of the gentleman. I think his last name was Williams, who was talking about committing to another HBCU. Nonetheless, if they have a strong showing at the beginning of the season, maybe not this season coming up, but in the future, with a lot of these kids going to these HBCUs, it is going to eventually, I believe, begin to turn the tide. One, it puts these schools in better positions to raise money, better facilities.
Yeah.
They'll be able to sign more of these games because ESPN is going to want to see these kids.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Guys get a lot of attention.
That's right.
Social media is big. You put up a video of Maker and 10 other these high school kids on highlight hoops, Sports Center, Bleacher Report. They'll have several million views by the end of the week. So this is going to start the money to begin to churn in for the HBCUs. And I'm just generally excited about it. I think we may have a turning of the guard. It will take a while, but more and more the kids, I will believe, will become more and more intrigued. And for your kids who are not necessarily top 5 stars, they may want to start going to HBCUs, your ones you may not hear about. They want to go because now that opportunity to play Ohio State or Maryland or those at the beginning,
Exactly.
that's bigger for me. It's all about building my brand, all that type of stuff. That's all kids want. If I can get 2 years in the limelight and get people into rocking my type of T-shirts that I make, them kids will do that too. It's all about selling yourself nowadays. So I'm excited to see. Professor J, go off, please.
Hey man, we in the same vein. All you did was give me a prelude, man. But yes, I'm excited about the possibilities of our greatest talent not being recruited and taken to the quote unquote bigger schools, but starting to lay a foundation at our HBCUs. So, like you say, the marketing, the television rights, the building of facilities. I can tell you right now, the last time we had a big spotlight on Morehouse campus, really the AUC altogether, was in the 1996 Olympics when they came and they built new arenas, new swimming pools, and all that stuff on all of our different campuses, right? But if you start shining light on the talent that we produce in our areas and we start sending them to our schools, I mean, it'll start changing the entire landscape, because then that will heat up on the recruiting side. It'll make sure that we're doing our due diligence in our own backyard. I mean, we got the county right here. If HU could get and Bowie State could start getting some of this great talent that we got here and stop letting them get away.
And Morgan.
And Morgan, it'll change a whole lot of things that are going on. I mean, it's just to me, it just resonates to the changing tide that's going on right now. And let me put this out there for all you parents. There is stellar and quality education at HBCUs as well. So if you worried about your kid not getting a good education, what rock you been under the last 25, 30 years? Send them to our HBCUs. They're going to go to class. They're going to play their sports. They're going to start showing up. We got Olympic athletes out here. I mean, let's start thinking on a larger scale, because our schools, if you haven't checked the time, they need our money. So we need to start flooding it back into those areas. Stop letting our institutions be in these hood areas and things that need development and stuff like that. If the money is coming into the universities, I know Morehouse and Spelman flooded the entire AUC and that community with the funding that they were getting coming in. This is about legacy, and I think it starts here. And send Bronny to Morehouse College.
and also to add on to what you just said, Professor J and Johnny, the fact that if we start funneling the kids to HBCUs, they won't have that feeling of being alone. Because when they're top athletes, they're already, when they go to these big, huge campuses, they're put in a little bubble. And
They
they're
are.
treated almost like circus uh, entertainment for the campus. Hey, we're gonna watch them when they play 12 games a year, and then after that, nobody wants to talk to them. So a lot of
Mm,
these athletes end up feeling alone.
mm.
And as we've seen with the Missouris of the world and the Oklahoma States, the treatment that these athletes get when they're on these programs, even though they may be the star athletes, they go through hell.
Yeah.
So they can feel assimilated, feel protected, get a great education,
Good
and
point.
bring millions of dollars back to these schools.
Right. Right.
And there's no. I'm so sick of the thinking that's going on now and the smear campaigns against these HBCUs and these athletes choosing to go or considering going to these schools. As far as you're not going to get seen, and the list goes on. The level of competition. When you talk about basketball in particular, by the time these guys arrive to college, they're already ready for the NBA.
Right.
So with the AAU schedules these guys are keeping and what have you, they're known. Maker, everyone knows him. He can go over. He can play in the NBDL. I mean, the developmental leagues. He can go to Australia. He can go to Europe. He can go anywhere he wants to go, and they're still going to know him. It's not like back in the day when they had we had three channels. I don't know, Johnny, you might not remember that. We had three channels. and all the sports came on. You had Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. Maybe you throw in Alabama, maybe you throw or whoever from Florida. But it's not like that anymore. You can go anywhere you want to go, young man, and you can thrive. And particularly if you go choose an HBCU, like you said, Big Reg, you're not going to. They want you there. You're going to feel welcome, and you're needed. And if we're trying to get back to a point where we're trying to pump money within our communities, then hey, what better place to do it at an educational institution?
Right. And you're right, Johnny Brooks. You're right as well. They're only doing one and done anyway. Kids are not staying in college to develop their game anyway. The NBA has recognized this. That's why they got the development league. That's why it's so easy for a player like LeBron to dominate 17, 18 years into his career, because half the kids he playing are children. So why not for these kids? They understand now. I can go to a HBCU, do my one and done, have a big fun, like they said on the Cosby Show.
Big fun.
And I'm headed to the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we're talking about HBCUs, but y'all do realize that, just like Sense just said, it doesn't matter what school you go to, because if your talent's going to speak for yourself. Right. And one individual that I just want to give a quick shout out to is Jay Morant. That brother can hoop, but he didn't go to a big school. His talent got him into the NBA because of his skill set, because of his work ethic. So I know we're talking about HBCUs, and I'm not taking nothing away from them, but I'm just saying, if you got the talent and the skill set, it will speak for itself.
That's it.
Oh, no doubt on that. No doubt on that.
Do we want to see the HBCUs hit the pavement more? I don't know how often they recruit, because generally they kind of find people in their areas.
So because it's financial.
They're going to start being and flying all over and trying to recruit some of these kids.
Financial.
Well, the issue with that, the recruitment, a lot of these coaches who used to try to go recruit some of these kids and none of them would come, they have limited funds to do their recruitment budget. So why are you going to spend thousands of dollars to go see a top player? Because if you want a top player, generally, you got to go see him multiple times, watch him play, make him feel wanted, overcome the fact that you don't have the facilities that the Kentuckys have, that the Dukes have, that the LSUs have, that the UCLAs have, to convince this kid to come to a HBCU. That, as Professor J said, more often than not is in the hood, might be a little run down because funding is short.
Right.
But what people don't realize, and I use Alabama, my favorite college football team. Alabama rebuilt 50% of that campus since Saban's been there because of all the money the football programs brought into the area. New dorm, they redid all of the Greek row. All of them got big, huge, look like mansions. Seriously.
No, I know.
Because there's so much money coming in, you get more application fees because people want to go to Alabama. You get more students coming in. So just imagine if you can bring a group, if a HBCU could get 3 of these guys to come together as a duo or a Fab Five.
Right.
But
imagine
again,
the TV revenue they would bring in to that area, and then everything falls from that. You're talking about tens of millions of dollars just for them to come for 1 year.
Winning franchises bring individuals to your dynasty. Period.
True.
But I just want to say one last thing on that topic. As far as McCord Maker going to HU Howard University, I applaud him and his family because I know it was a tough decision. I know he was seduced, and the seduction was unlimited. Unlimited. And he made a choice. And it always takes someone has to be the first, and he was the first, and I applaud him.
And to clarify things, he actually technically he wasn't the first. He was the first 5-star. Johnny put it out there, and I had it in my notes. We also got to give a hats off to Nate Tabor out of Queens, New York, who's a 4-star who committed to go to Norfolk State this year.
Yep.
And we still don't know where Mickey Williams is going, but I'm sure he's going to do the same thing.
And if Bronny is serious and LeBron can talk to him, what is it, North Carolina Central that Bronny says that he might consider? Yeah. So, I mean.
And if Bronny go, that means Zaire going too. They buddies.
No, Zaire is actually ahead of Bronny.
Is he? Yeah. Oh, my bad. A year, about 1 year, right?
A year or two.
I want to say two.
Is that much older than Bronny?
Yeah, I think Zaire is a senior this year. All right. So, again, hats off to McCord Maker, and we're hoping that this is a trend.
Yes.
And a movement, not a one of.
That's right.
All right, fellas. We got to talk about this COVID-19. I know people probably tired of us talking about it every week, but I mean, you can't get away from it. Unfortunately, we as a nation haven't dealt with this situation like a lot of the European nations have. That's why they're playing soccer. Some of the Asian nations are playing baseball and not having issues, but we still having outbreaks, and I'll leave that at that now. I won't get into that soapbox. You got some major leagues that are starting this month that are having some issues. First and foremost, Major League Baseball can't even get the teams tested and results back when they first report back to their freaking stadiums.
Right.
You had 3 teams that had to cancel practices because they couldn't get tests back from tests they took last week.
Crazy.
One of them still waiting for a test. In the new protocol, players are supposed to get tested every other day. There are multiple reports that say players haven't been tested for over a week. They got the original test, haven't been tested again since. And the fact that they're not in the bubble, they get to go home. There are no restrictions on what they can and can't do. Oh man, this is. I don't know about y'all. I know what J3 think. This is set up for disaster.
Well, we're fortunate enough that we live in the DMV, and one of the most outspoken players on this issue is Sean Doolittle, who was a relief pitcher for the Washington Nationals, the champions of the World Series this past year. And he said, and I know, Big Red, you said you don't want to go down this road, but he says, and I quote, "We haven't done anything that would suggest we open sports back up." I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but basically that's what he said. And he says that they meaning MLB, says that they need our help, our being the public, to do the right thing. And there's no universal law or edict in place to make people wear masks, to make people social distance. There's none of that in place right now. But yet you have a league trying to start up and fly all around the country because there's no bubbles. The only bubbles is in individual cities, and those are inevitably going to be broken. So we have a problem. And again, we don't even know, just because these teams are back at camp as far as Major League Baseball, we don't know if there are actually going to be any players to play, because they still have the ability to opt out. And several of these leagues also have the ability to opt out. You have MLB has the ability to opt out. You have the NBA, where you're seeing players opting out. We just had a player in DC today opt out. They said it was an injury. We all know it was an opt out. And Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
You have the NHL. They had to make their decisions today whether to opt out or not. And now the NFL still hasn't come down with any policy. But the NFL is they're just sitting in the background waiting to see how things play out. They really don't want to make any noise right now.
Right.
But Scott, getting back to Doolittle, the relief pitcher, he said sports is a reward for a functioning society.
Right.
And you know, we're in chaos right now. We've been talking about COVID-19 when it was just a little seed, and it ain't going. It's done grew into a tree, and it ain't losing no leaves.
Right. That's real talk.
We can't escape it.
Man,
since January.
We've
been talking about it since January, and you know, the second part about it is I don't know what people are looking at. I mean, all you gotta do is turn on the TV or just turn on the radio. They tell you day in and day out the numbers are increasing. You got people down here in Florida, down at the beach, they having a good time, and then they catching COVID, and they want to look stupid on the TV talking about I don't know how I got it. Or you got people out here out in Virginia going to the bar, drinking up some stuff, and then next thing you know, they catch the COVID, and then hopefully they still alive, because most of them are catching it. They passing away. So this is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy for sure. I think we should move the bubble to Toronto. I mean, Canada's whole curve is gone. And since we got an NBA season that's coming, I mean, Toronto might be a better destination for a bubble right there. But
the NHL did that. The NHL that only has, 3 Canadian teams out of 30 decided to do their 2 hub cities in Canada.
See?
Because of the outbreaks in the U.S.
Yeah.
Because of the shit that they had, they nipped this in the bud like they should have.
Exactly.
We didn't know it. We just said it was going to disappear.
Yeah.
And then you want to talk about Orlando and what's going on in Orlando? I'm sorry, Ed. Go ahead, Ed.
No, I was. Go ahead. I wasn't saying anything.
The MLS is in Orlando at the Wild World of Sports, where the NBA is getting ready to go. In their bubble. They had to send the whole team home.
Whole team.
They had to send the Dallas Football Club home because 10 players tested positive. Another 3 have since tested positive. But not just them.
Hanging out with Zeke.
Today they announced the Nashville Soccer Club, they had to postpone their first game because they had 5 players test positive today that were already in Orlando that were negative, and now they're positive. It's so bad the MVP MLS said, I'm out. I'm not coming.
The only credit I will say as far as the NBA concerned is I think the NBA's leadership is solid because Adam Silver, he's at least acknowledging that this thing can go haywire at any moment and that nothing is guaranteed. And this virus has taught us, unfortunately in our country, that nothing is guaranteed. It can go either way. And because there's no set protocols like the relief pitcher from the Nationals was saying, because we had a little bit of success early as far as containment of COVID, and basically that was just because pretty much the whole country shut down. But it's kind of ironic that since summer hit, Memorial Day, everything has just gone down the tubes.
Right.
So everybody was in a rush to open up and talk about these leagues restarting, or in the baseball season starting at all. That every little safety protocol, they say they wanted to have all these tests, and they say they were going to follow all these protocols, but yet nothing is being followed. You said Big Reg, they can't even get tested. They can't even get the results back.
Some people getting tested like 5 days ago and still don't have no results.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
What did Dr. Fauci say? Remember what Dr. Fauci said back in March, y'all? He said the COVID-19 will dictate whether we have sports or not.
Yeah, he said that.
We seeing it play out right now. I'm telling you, the teams that start their seasons gonna come to a crashing halt midway through because it's gonna be too many people that are being tested positive. You're gonna have individuals sneaking outside the bubble. Come on now, they're gonna be doing things they're not supposed to, and they're gonna bring it back. And then we're gonna see every major sport get touched with COVID all over again, and they're gonna have to shut everything down. It's gonna happen. Watch.
I was watching the news before we started, and they said by November they're projecting 200,000 deaths. Now, if that's not an eye opener for you, something is wrong.
So who's at fault in all this? Is it the owners? Is it? I mean, seriously.
Don't make me answer that.
But who's like? Why do we need sports so bad? As far as why can't we just say, hey, you know what? We have enough content, and we have enough things to entertain us. Why is it so vital that we have every sport imaginable available to us? I agree. The challenge of individual sports is one thing. I don't mind golf. We can have golf. We can have maybe some tennis. But football, how are we gonna play a football season?
We're not.
I don't even know we can add tennis, man. Shoot. The way Serena be, man, I don't know if you can add tennis. It be going back and forth. I don't know. I would be sitting there. Forget that. Yeah, forget that.
Man.
Oh, thank you.
Jay, I couldn't hear
I love it.
Yeah,
I
say
love
that again, Professor Jay.
Oh, you got me with that, Professor Jay.
Say that again.
Oh, please.
Yeah, you got me with that one. That's hilarious. But yeah, that's real talk. But we, as J3 always says, and everybody else, the only reason why they're trying to do this is because of the money.
Yep.
I forgot who said it. It was a big time athlete. He said, sports are not essential jobs. I understand why we're doing it, but it's not essential. And people are doing it for the wrong reasons. Everybody's trying to maintain contracts and protect their CBAs and all this crazy stuff. But as Fauci said, the virus is going to dictate what actually happens long term.
I agree.
All right. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Johnny.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
John.
You
Professor
go ahead.
J.
I was basically saying they wasting their time. We have beaten this into the ground, put it into submission. I've used all my at this point, But as long as the problem is, as long as players want to make money too, because these guys are still showing up. A lot of them showing up. We can point fingers at a few of them that say, you know what, COVID is bigger than this sports, bigger than me making some money. I'm gonna go home. But on his way home, he's gonna pass half his team headed to the stadium to check in.
That's true.
So that's
That's
the
true.
problem.
That's
That's
true.
the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you. I feel you. That's a good way to end that segment. That's a good way to end that segment. All right, fellas, it's time for us to hit the things that caught our eye this week. I just got a couple of quick things and I'll let y'all get in. I'd like to say congrats to Miss Maya Moore and more importantly, Mr. Jonathan Irons on his release from prison after serving 22 years of a 50-year sentence that was falsely convicted. I mean, he got convicted at the age of 16 to 50 years. And Maya Moore, through a prison ministry, heard about him, met him, and decided in the prime of her career, a multi-time champion, MVP of the WNPA, walked away for now 2 seasons
Thank you.
of money, not just the WNBA. She was also a champion overseas in Europe. So she walked away from hundreds of thousands, if not a little over $1 million, to fight for his plight to get him freed. And last week, he walked out of jail as a free man. So, I mean, that was huge. That was huge. And Maya Morris decided she's going to continue her social justice platform. She hasn't said if she's going to ever come back to basketball or not, but that was huge. And we talked about COVID's beating everything. There's one person in sports that's trying his darndest to keep up with it and fight back. Our man Dana White. You got UFC 251 this Saturday, Fight Island.
Yes,
Dana White looked like he had a little issue and a hiccup when Gilbert Burns, who was supposed to be in the main event welterweight title, flew from Florida, tested in Florida negative, got to Vegas, tested positive. So Dana does what Dana does.
Yep.
Wraps up a multi-fight deal with Jorge Masvidal, who they've been fighting back and forth about contracts, to put on the actual original fight that was supposed to kick off UFC 251. So Fight Island's on this Saturday, fellas. I don't know about y'all, but I'm hyped. 3 title fights. Dana keep doing this thing.
Let's go. Let's go.
Anything catch anybody else's eye?
Yeah, it sure did, especially today, actually on my way home. So let me clear my throat, use my Huggy Lowdown voice. Deshaun Jackson, you are the Bama of the week. And his anti-Semitic tweet is going to say some things out there in the climate that we're in today. I'm wondering what's wrong with this young man. What's going through your mind where you make reference to Adolf Hitler concerning the Jews, where you make things concerning them in a derogatory way, and then come back and say you were misunderstood? Come on, bruh. You got to have a better mindset than that. So I can't believe, fellas, that this young brother came out with those comments. And that's all I got to say. That's what caught my eye from a negative standpoint.
That also caught my eye too, Professor J. But I will say, I hope the man learned, because life is about learning lessons. We all make mistakes, and I hope this is a teaching moment for Deshaun. And I'm not condoning it. Trust me, I'm not condoning on it in any level. But I hope it's a teaching moment where he can, actually pick up some books, learn some things, and figure out, what should be said or understood and what shouldn't be understood. And I hope Philly affords him the same opportunity to grow from this, like they did Riley Cooper
You hope so.
When he killed the N word and still stayed on their roster another 3 years afterwards. So I hope they just don't abandon the man. And I'm not saying he's innocent in this. He's guilty as all H. You can he's guilty. But I hope that we don't just throw someone in the trash without teaching him what actually happened and what's actually going on.
Let's teach him, but he's still the Bama of the week.
Oh, he's still a Bama. Yeah.
So for me, something didn't catch my eye. It actually caught my ear. For all of y'all who don't know, one of my favorite sports is bowling. And I was told how the new season is actually going to be ran. When you're competing against teams, normally you have 2 lanes. You have the individuals on each team on each lane, and you're competing back and forth. Well, the new rule for this year is everyone's going to be on the same lane, and you're not going to have a team on the opposite side. So everybody's bowling on one lane the whole time. And it's going to be crazy because you're bowling 3 games on one lane, which is going to be unbelievable. So I already know that for me, and this is going to be rough, but I'm gonna have to sit out this year because the COVID ain't taking no prisoners, and I ain't trying to be a statistic, but just for you all to know that this is the way that they're projecting how the season is going to last if you're going to be in a season for bowling for 2021.
How does that? How does that? It's safer.
I don't get
that. Because well, first of all, you're only bowling on one lane, and so there's not going to be another team that's going to bowl right beside you. So even though you have individuals that are competing, they're going to be in different tables, but you're still only bowling on one lane. You're not bowling beside somebody the whole night.
All right.
Okay. But now you've got, if it's just doubles, anywhere from 4 to 10 people bowling on one lane, touching the ball rack all the time, touching everybody. Yeah.
And you're going from bowling for 3 hours to probably 6 hours because it's going to take you that much longer to bowl 3 games.
It's a
one lane.
AJ3, that's more bike riding for us, brother.
You know.
I hear you. Last but not least, we want to put out there for everybody. Please join us this Saturday, July 11th, to support our friend and former guest, Captain Anthony Ayers of the Cottage City Police Department, for what they're calling the New Day Rising, which is a community and police solidarity revival and march. Again, it's this Saturday, the 11th. It's a sunrise service, so it's 6 a.m., so you got to get up early, so set your alarm clocks. But you can come to Cottage City. You can look it up. It's in PG County, right over near Peace Crossing. And there's going to be a special rededication by the Cottage City police officers, and he's also invited police officers from all around the county to come and rededicate themselves to the communities and try to change police processes and really become community-based policing. So again, if you can join the positional sports team to support Chief Ayers, come out this Saturday. We'll post this on our websites so you can look up the information. 6 a.m. We look forward to seeing you. All right, fellas, it's time for our final post of the evening. Let's start with you, Professor J. You look like you ready to get it.
Oh, man, just as usual, I just want everybody to pray for one another. Just stay safe out there. You know, do the things that you need to do that are deemed essential. And definitely help a neighbor. Do something kind for people today. Please, it's needed.
I like that. What you got, J3?
Again, I just want everyone to stay safe, think smartly, and like Professor Jay said, look out for your neighbor.
All right. Johnny, what you got for us?
Just want to tell everybody I love them, stay safe, And no weapon formed against you shall prosper.
There it
Amen.
is.
There it is. There it is.
Amen.
There it is. All right, Ed.
Again, the theme: no pool parties. Anybody? Wear your mask and wash your hands. And thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
For all our listeners, please don't believe what you're hearing on TV. I don't care which one you're doing. Do your own research. Research multiple things. This COVID-19 is killed already 132,000 people. It affects us disproportionately, our brown brothers and sisters disproportionately. Protect yourself. Wear a mask.
That's right.
Limit where you're going.
That's
You have
right.
to make sacrifices to protect yourself long term. So please do that for the safety. We want to see you. We want to see your live comments coming in the show and your comments during the week. We appreciate you, and we want you to be here with us.
Amen.
Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time and the opportunity to share our positions on sports with you. Please tune in next Tuesday, 7 p.m. for our next live show. We're here every week, every Tuesday, 7 p.m. You can also check out our shows. You can look us up on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Positions on Sports Talk Show YouTube channel. And when you go to the channel, not only like the channel, if you can please subscribe, be greatly, greatly appreciated. You also have our Facebook and Instagram at Positions on Sports. Also like those. Please, please be safe. Look out for each other. Love one another. Do the best that you can do. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful week. This has been a Positional Sports Talk Show. Peace.
Change the name. Change it.